Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you guys are doing good. So as you guys heard me now and my excitement, I'm doing a test ride on the Harley Lowrider S, the 2020 model. So at this point, I'm just pulling out of the parking lot to go for my test ride. I'm doing a voiceover today because I didn't bring my microphone with me on the day, so hence the voiceover. I'm just checking myself out in the mirror there, seeing how the bike fits, because I'm vain like that. And over there you can see my iron over there. So yeah, as I said, I'm just pulling out of the parking lot. The sales guy just ran me through the instrument cluster. But I mean, if you've been on a Harley, you know the whole thing. It's pretty much the same on every Harley. So I won't run through that. This kind of just could be a spontaneous first impression video. So at this point, I'm just feeling myself through the clutch and the throttle. I don't want to be ripping on the throttle because it's a bigger, powerful bike. You guys can see me go over the bump there. I don't know why I was worried about going over the bumps because the bike has 120 millimeter ground clearance. But I guess I was just trying to feel the suspension and how hard or soft it was. So the bike that I'm on is the Barracuda Silver. I know that the 2020 model comes in two colors, the Vivid Black and Barracuda Silver. Not a big fan of the Barracuda Silver, but seeing it in person, it grew on me. So at this point, I'm just pressing on the front brakes there, and I can feel that the brakes have some bite. It's got a dual disc up front. Just fixing my mirrors to be able to see behind me. On the iron, I actually have them underneath, going over this bump. Must say it was quite soft. I didn't really feel the bumps too much, so it was quite nice. It didn't feel like I was on a Harley actually. So you guys will notice now I'm just like behind this trailer. I was basically contemplating whether or not I should go on the highway because when I left the dealership, the fuel reserve light was on, and it said I had 50 kilometers, and when I left, it said I had 38. So I just didn't want to be stuck in the middle of nowhere. On top of that, I didn't have the fob for this bike. So yeah, at this point, I'm just deciding to take it through town. One of the biggest selling points for me about this bike is its tank capacity. According to its spec sheet, it has an 18.9 liter tank versus the 17.8 liter tank of the previous model. And coming from a Sportster, you'll appreciate a bigger tank because, as you know, on a Sportster, you're having to fill up almost every second stop. So it's nice that you're able to travel long distances before you fill up again. People say that the engine at idle sounds like a sewing machine. To me, it sounds like when you're trying to breathe, but you have a piece of tissue stuck in your nose. Although I will say that once you get on it and you get up to speed, that raw grunt of the engine sounds amazing. I wasn't actually able to take this bike on some winding or twisty roads because I wanted to see how it would handle. I believe the lean angle on this bike, left and right, is 30.1 degrees. It's obviously not a sports bike, but I can imagine how it would handle in twisties. It feels so light and nimble. But in a straight line and weaving through traffic, it feels amazing. I did feel like I could fit through this gap, but I didn't want to take that chance because obviously it's not my bike and I didn't want to scratch anyone's car. But I'm pretty sure you could just lane split and filter through traffic very easily on this bike. I know that the bike is 295 kilograms, and I believe it's a little bit lighter than the previous Dyna model, the Dyna Lowrider S. It actually, dare I say it, it feels a lot lighter than my Sportster, and I know my Sportster is lighter than this bike, but you don't feel the weight of this bike at all. It feels so nimble, it feels so light. You're able to throw it around, flick it around with ease. You guys can see. And the engine on this thing is just amazing. It's got power throughout the rev range. tell I'm still very excited. Obviously, with this bike being a little bit lighter than the previous Dyna model and the M8 engine on this, I believe this one's got a 114 cubic inch engine, which translates to 1,800 cc's roughly. So yeah, with the lighter frame and the slightly bigger engine, this thing just moves. Sounded like I was falling off a building there. One of the things I did notice as well is that this bike obviously comes with a bikini fairing, with a quarter fairing. I've heard a lot of people say that it doesn't offer a lot of wind protection, but I actually found that I didn't get a lot of wind blast or wind to my face or my helmet. I don't know if that's because I'm a shorter guy or a slightly shorter guy, but I didn't have any issues with it at all. I mean, obviously you get airflow, from underneath the arms and behind the jacket, but to my face I didn't feel like I got any wind resistance at all. Normally when I'm on my Sportster, my neck hurts from the wind, but on this my neck hurts because of the torque, which is a nice change. While we're on the topic of torque, I like that the seat has a bit of a lip on the back. At times, because of the torque, you kind of feel like you're going to slide off the back of the bike, but that little extra lip helps keep you on top of the bike or in the bike. So I pulled up next to this Mercedes AMG thinking he'd want to dice. I guess not. He's probably scared I'd beat him with my 2 horse ponies. So they've changed up the front forks. It's got a 28-degree rake versus the previous 30.5-degree rake. So when you're on the bike, it feels a lot more sportier and it handles a lot better. Along with the dual disc front brakes and the bite that it has, I was actually quite surprised and quite happy with the engine braking. So you guys are in for a treat. This is my U-turn. It's just like my English, it's sketchy, so I should probably practice those more. So at this point I'm noticing that obviously with my foot positioning, it's in a more slightly mid to forward position. I still feel very comfortable and in control of the bike, and my legs are stretched out, but not to the point where they're completely straight, which is quite nice. I did feel though that my arms were reaching more for the handlebars than on my Sportster. So it was a little bit awkward making those turns, but I'm sure if I have a few more kilometers on this bike, I'll be able to maneuver it with ease. The tire spec for the new Softail Lowrider S is 180/70 B16 versus the old 160/70 B17. So I think in addition to the wider tire at the back and the new frame, as well as the suspension, it just makes it so much more of a planted bike. The seat height is 690 millimeters. If you are a shorter person, I'm about 5'8" or 5'9", but I have no trouble at all planting both feet on the ground, and I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would just suggest maybe getting a narrower seat as opposed to a wider one for your inseam. Not sure if you guys heard that now, but I was mashing on that rear brake. I was not impressed with that rear brake at all. It feels like it does nothing for you. I don't know if that's because the dual disc front brake performs so well that the brakes at the back feel almost non-existent, or if because this is a demo model and I don't know if the back brakes were worn, but I'm not very impressed with the brakes at the back at all. Initially, I didn't think it was going to be a big deal with the placement of the gauges, but I did find myself constantly having to look down at the 4-inch speedometer and tachometer. Aesthetically, the placement looks nice, where it sits on the tank, but functionally it doesn't work because I found myself having to look down all the time. And as you guys know, on a motorcycle, you always want your concentration to be on the road ahead of you, and not always looking down at how fast you are breaking the law. Joke. I'm on a cruiser, so I'm always going speed limit. But yeah, so I understand why guys relocate their gauges to be on top of their T-bars for better visibility. For me personally though, I'm not a big fan. I think because I'm a shorter rider, so I feel like it would obstruct my view of the road. But then I guess rather have my gauges up front where I can see them and me looking at the road than constantly looking down at the tank below me. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the video that it almost feels like you're not even on a Harley because there's so little vibration. And coming from a Sportster, you're so used to that shake and that rumble. And by rumble, I do not mean I had curry for dinner last night. Although I might need to poop my pants because this bike is quick fast. So yeah guys, in closing, at this point I am pretty bummed that I have to bring back this bike to the dealership. I'll give you the highs and the lows. I'll start off with the highs. Straight off the factory floor, you've got power for days. Handling is really good. It looks amazing. It's very comfortable when you're on the bike. Lows, obviously that rear back brake didn't do it for me. I wasn't impressed with that. I also find that it's a little bit too expensive for most people, and on top of that you'd have to throw in an aftermarket exhaust and all these other parts that you'd want to swap out, and that's going to set you back an arm and a leg. But I mean, if you've got that extra buck laying around, I would totally recommend this bike. So for me, that is a oh yeah bro. And finally, before I close, I just want to say, how cool is it? Brad Binder won the MotoGP this weekend. What a bosh. Anyway guys, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Also, please do subscribe. I would really appreciate it. It'll help my channel so much to grow. Give me a follow on Revetcha Rides on Instagram. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Shot, bro.